What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering, and I thought I would pick a positive story today. Now, hopefully you'll prove me wrong and people will view this video as much as all the angry ones, but history has not been kind to me doing happy videos. But I do want to point out something about Keanu Reeves and just how monumental his crowdfunded comic book success was. Now, Keanu Reeves did not invent the self-funded comic book, obviously. In fact, he took a road that was paved by relative nobodies, grinded out with blood, sweat, and tears over the past 2 or 3 years. And he turned it into a superhighway. You know, the idea that indie comics can be a mainstream success got a lot of validity with Keanu Reeves and his Berserker book. Now, we've seen, you know, your boy Zach work with Sylvester Stallone in his The Expendables comic book series. You know, I've been trying to talk Gina Carano into doing a comic book with Zach too, because why wouldn't she? Because it's, you know, wildly successful. But a while ago, there was a Kickstarter with, you know, Berserker by Keanu Reeves, Matt Kint, and Ron Garney. Now, I don't know how involved Keanu really was in all this. Obviously, it's him as the character. But it's a graphic novel series about an immortal warrior seeking only one thing, the truth about his existence and how to end it. Of course, you have soft covers. And they basically used the same model that the independent comic book people did. Except I wish he hadn't used Kickstarter. I wish he had used Indiegogo, but it is what it is. You know, Berserker, the first comic book and graphic novel series from the iconic Keanu Reeves, who makes his comic book debut writing alongside New York Times bestselling co-writer Matt Kint and superstar artist Ron Garney of Wolverine and Captain America. Eisner and Harvey Award nominated colorist Bill Crabtree and lettering by Clem Robbins. Now, yes, Keanu Reeves has cachet. Yes, when Keanu Reeves launched his comic book, he got a ton of favorable press. But he sold 15,000 copies and raised $1.5 million. I'm upping that a little bit for easy math, but essentially he sold this book at an average MSRP of $100. Right? 14,000 backers, 1.4 million. That's $100 per person. So most people paid $100 for the card covers. Now, it's volume 1, 2, and 3. So they paid about $30 each, right? But then you can have your exclusive. This is the exact same model that was figured out by Comicsgate. You know, some of the early people figured out that there was an a la carte. There was a boutique style business with comic books where, yeah, the $3 paperbacks, that market is basically dead. You can get them digitally if that's what you want, or, you know, and then there's just not enough money in it because you'd have to sell 1 million copies, or let's say 100,000 copies. You know, if you're selling your comic for $4 each, you're making maybe $1, maybe each. So, you know, there's no real money in it. But what Comicsgate figured out was that people were willing to spend more. People were willing to pay for high quality items. And that's exactly what Berserker buoyed off or drafted off. You know, the works of guys like your boy Zach, you know, like this is, and the rest of the people in the independent comic book industry right now, this is a massive success. And then Keanu Reeves to star in Berserker film and anime. He gets a movie and an anime for a book that sold 15,000 copies. I know for a fact Cyberfrog probably sold more than that. I know Jawbreaker sold more than that. So the opportunity is real for independent comic book artists to get the attention of these people. Netflix has secured the rights to Berserker, the Boom Studios published comic book by Keanu Reeves. Reeves will produce and star in the screen adaptations, which will start with the story getting the feature treatment, followed by an anime spin-off series. Berserker, based on the original idea by Keanu Reeves, is co-written by the John Wick co-star and New York Times best-selling writer Matt Kindt and illustrated by Marvel artist. Yes, he's got big-time cachet, but there are great artists out there. The first issue of the 12-issue limited series launched March 3rd and has already sold over 615,000 copies. Wow. Okay, so this is just the Kickstarter? So we sold... So it must have got distribution then and sold, even more. Okay, so even better. The story is about an immortal warrior's 80,000-year fight through the ages, a man known only as B, who is half mortal, half god, cursed and compelled to bad behavior. So the story itself isn't really that original. I suppose I'd have to see, more of the deep lore. But what's awesome about this for the independent community is, they don't have the cash. They don't have the cachet that Keanu Reeves does, okay? I single-handedly believe the Keanu Reeves attachment to Cyberpunk 2077 probably increased their sales by at least 10%. It's not a massive number, but him just being in the story made a lot of people feel a lot better about, spending their money. Keanu Reeves is just... And obviously, I don't blame him for the Cyberpunk 2077 debacle. But Berserker was a massive crowdfunding success, helped in part by Reeves' involvement, raising nearly $2 million between Kickstarter and additional funding before the first issue even hit the shelves. The series so far has sold 615,000 copies, making it the second most sold comic in the last 10 years. And this is an original character, an original story, not a rehash of something old. I talk about this because this is such a huge W for people that still believe that there's room for a unique comic book character to have huge success. Now, would Berserker have sold this well if not being attached to Keanu Reeves? Of course not. But it's still an original character. It's still, it's still like an indie, in a high octane indie. But you could argue that, hey, Ethan Van Sciver had a lot of cachet in the comic books industry too. It's not like EVS and Zach and stuff are working with hack artists. They're working with like legitimate artists and lettering people. And now it's getting turned into not only a Netflix anime series, but a movie. Now, I got to admit, I'm not really pumped for Matrix 4. I'm sure it's going to be just awful. I have more hope for John Wick 4, although there's been diminishing returns with each one of those films as well. But I just think that it's important to take a moment to, like, acknowledge that there's a market still for new and original characters. A huge market. 600,000 people bought this book, and this character never existed before. I mean, if nothing else, that should be inspiring to the people who have been blessed with the ability to, create stories and to draw and to letter, because there's a real Comicsgate proved that you could essentially make a living doing comics on your own, self-distribution and everything. But Keanu proved that there's still a huge interest in independent, individual comic book characters that are unique and new and not rehash, reboot, trash. Marvel needs to take a look at this more than the Children of the Atom garbage that they've decided to push out instead. I hope you enjoyed this video. Congratulations, Keanu Reeves. We'll talk to you again real soon.